Trump warns Iran to surrender or face the consequences.
We remind U.S. citizens not to travel to Israel or Iraq and not to travel to Iran under any circumstances.
I'm Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley with Georgia Howe. It's Wednesday, June 18th, and this is Morning Wire.
Senate Republicans held a hearing to investigate who was in charge during Joe Biden's presidency. We speak to one of the senators leading the inquiry.
I think this scandal's bigger than Watergate.
And Don Jr. and Eric Trump open up to Morning Wire 10 years after that fateful escalator ride.
All of a sudden, we got political and we were debanked, we were deplatformed.
Thanks for waking up with Morning Wire. Stay tuned. We have the news you need to know.
America is built on hard work and powered by American energy. Chevron has spent $44 billion with local businesses across all 50 states since 2022, fueling infrastructure and communities, all while strengthening local economies. Last year, Chevron increased U.S. production nearly 20%, powering communities and businesses from the heartlands to the coasts. We're helping to fuel America's energy advantage, building a brighter future right here at home. Visit chevron.com/America to discover more.
As the U.S. weighs intervention in Iran, President Trump is warning the Ayatollah that his patience is wearing thin.
Daily Wire senior editor Cabot Phillips is here with the latest on this escalating conflict. Hey, Cabot, so a lot happening, very fluid situation. What's the latest in the Middle East?
Well, the fighting is showing no sign of slowing down as Israel continues to target Iran's nuclear and military facilities, and Iran targets whatever they can hit, including civilian populations. On Tuesday, Israel says it killed Ali Shadmani. That's Iran's senior military commander. He had only been in the position for 3 days after replacing his predecessor, who was also killed in a separate strike Friday. The Israelis also launched a successful strike on the Natanz enrichment facility, a crucial part of Iran's nuclear program. We're still waiting for a full assessment of the damage there, but one Israeli official told the Wall Street Journal the facility may have imploded underground. For their part, Iran says they struck an Israeli military intelligence center in Tel Aviv, though Israel says most of the strikes have again targeted civilian areas. Elsewhere, Iranian missiles hit the Weizmann Institute of Science. Israeli officials say years' worth of medical research and scientific data was destroyed in the strike. But the big question right now around the world is whether the U.S. will join Israel's efforts to dismantle Iran's nuclear program.
Right, and what are we hearing now on that front?
So by all accounts, Donald Trump is still weighing his options and seriously considering joining the war. The president convened his national security team for a Situation Room meeting Tuesday afternoon. Just before that meeting took place, Trump posted on Truth Social that, quote, "We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived, and manufactured stuff." Now, that use of the word "we" really turned heads in Washington. And while the White House says he was referring to American weapons and not Americans directly, it's quite the departure from a few days ago when he said America was playing no role in this conflict. As a sign of that potential willingness to intervene, the U.S. has begun expanding its military presence in the region. In the last 48 hours alone, the Pentagon deployed a third naval destroyer to the Eastern Mediterranean, along with a second U.S. carrier strike group. In addition, a number of large refueling planes are also reportedly heading to the region. Now, the White House maintains that these are purely defensive moves, but they could also be part of a not-so-subtle threat aimed at Iran.
Right, and speaking of threats, the president took aim at the Ayatollah directly yesterday. What did we hear from him?
We heard a lot, John. In a flurry of posts Tuesday, the president wrote that, quote, "We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but is safe there. We are not going to take him out, in parentheses, kill, at least not for now. But we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin." So a clear threat there.
Indeed.
Now, for his part, VP Vance said Tuesday that, quote, "People are right to be worried about foreign entanglement after the last 25 years of idiotic foreign policy." But he said that Trump has, quote, "earned some trust on this issue and may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment."
All right, so some clear signals, including from Vance, that things might be escalating even further. What are we hearing now on the peace talks?
Well, Iran has reportedly continued reaching out to Middle Eastern intermediaries, saying that they're willing to resume talks on a ceasefire or nuclear deal. And there were initial reports that President Trump was open to sitting down for those conversations. But on Tuesday, he made his position clear. writing on social media, quote, "I have not reached out to Iran for peace talks in any way, shape, or form. This is just more highly fabricated fake news. If they want to talk, they know how to reach me. They should have taken the deal that was on the table. Would have saved a lot of lives." President Trump also took aim at the isolationist wing of the Republican Party, who have been lobbying him hard to stay out of this conflict. Those voices include Tucker Carlson and Reps Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. Quote, "America first means many great things," he said, including the fact that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Something he's been very clear about and very consistent about for a decade now. Kevin, thanks so much for reporting.
Absolutely.
If your razor company takes more pride in the month of June than giving you a close, clean shave, it's time to switch things up. Jeremy's Razors is 5 stainless steel blades that destroy stubble and corporate pandering. A precision trimmer for clean lines and tight corners. Plus, they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you try it and don't like it, just send it back for a full refund. Subscribe today and get 27% off blade refills. Head over to jeremy'srazors.com. That's jeremy'srazors.com today.
The Republican-led Senate Judiciary Committee is holding a hearing today as part of its investigation into what was really going on behind the scenes during Joe Biden's presidency, who was really running the country amid the president's cognitive decline, and were media outlets colluding to cover it up.
Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri is helping lead that hearing. He joins us now. Senator, thank you so much for coming on.
Sure, it's good to be with you.
So you and Senator Cornyn will be holding judiciary hearings today and looking into the Biden presidency. Can you preview today's hearing?
Yeah, I think it's important for the country to understand what was actually going on. Everybody could see the clear decline of Joe Biden. The media tried to dismiss it as cheap fakes. I mean, there was sort of one excuse after another. Democrats were saying he's sharper than he's ever been. You had, the left-wing media parroting those talking points too.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
It just is really dangerous kind of road to go down, to have the one person that's elected by the entire country be mentally incompetent. It begs the question, who was running the country? And so our hearing is going to try to tease this out a little bit of, who knew what, when, what should have been seen, and then what should have been done about it. And it's not just looking backwards. It really is an effort to look forward. I mean, I chair the Senate, the Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution. Having a functioning president is actually kind of an important thing in our constitutional order. And for me personally, I think this scandal's bigger than Watergate, but everybody's very eager to sweep it under the rug. And I just don't think the American people should accept that.
Yeah, we described it on this show as potentially the biggest presidential scandal in American history. What specific evidence do you have that President Biden was not the one making decisions during his time in office?
Well, I think, they tell everybody, don't believe your lying eyes. Everyone could see it. There's whistleblowers who come forward that he would get confused and get lost in the bathroom. Then, of course, you have a very important point that we're going to touch on, the use of the auto pen. It used to be, right, kings would affix their seal on a document, and that's how you knew it was official. In this country, we believe that the people are the sovereign, and when we vote for elected officials, their actions, like voting, matter. And when a president signs a letter or issues a pardon, they're speaking on behalf of the American people. So we're going to have a few witnesses kind of talk about that at the hearing today. What does that mean? What are the consequences of that? And how we should view this kind of authority moving forward with somebody who wasn't able to exercise it competently. And I think it's bolstered by a few other facts. Special prosecutor Robert Hur specifically did not bring charges on the documents case because he didn't think Biden could stand trial. He wasn't competent to stand trial. That's kind of a big thing that people were, again, sort of eager to brush away. And you got to remember, too, the Democrats were more than willing to lie to the American people and say not just that he was competent and could remain president, but that he should get 4 more years. It really wasn't until that debate, when it was on full display, that they could not deny it themselves, even though they tried to keep the truth hidden.
Now, we learned in the book Original Sin that there was a group of unelected advisors who were shielding Biden from the press and even his own cabinet secretaries. Likely they were making the decisions for him. That's the implications. Who do you believe was really in charge, and should there actually be consequences for those involved in this?
Well, Joe Biden obviously played a significant role. But I think this issue is particularly important for us as a constitutional republic. There's only one person in the Article 2 branch that's sort of runs the show and speaks for the American people. It's the President of the United States. And so when you have a situation like this that was very obvious and very hidden and covered up, again, not just by the people around them, but their media allies, because they were so focused on making sure President Trump never got back into office that they were willing to go along with this lie. That's why we're having the hearing today.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, and we'll be watching that hearing with interest.
Anytime.
It was 10 years ago this week when Donald Trump changed American politics forever by announcing a run for the White House. Don Jr. and Eric Trump celebrated that anniversary in an event in Manhattan.
Daily Wire White House correspondent Mary Margaret Olahan traveled to New York to speak to the Trump sons, and she joins us now. So, Mary Margaret, you sat down with Eric and Don Jr. What did they have to tell you?
Hey, Georgia. Yes, so Eric and Don Jr. held an event that included a business announcement on Monday at Trump Tower. We'll get to that shortly. But first, we had to take a step back and reflect. It's been exactly 10 years since their father descended the escalator at Trump Tower to announce he was running for president. Don Jr. shared his thoughts on that pivotal moment.
We got on the elevator one floor up. My whole family, that was before the fateful sort of escalator ride down. And my father looked at me right in the eyes. He goes, "And now we find out who our real friends are." And it was really telling, because it was from two perspectives, right? One, the guy understands how the real world works. Unlike all these politicians who, they do what they're told and they're sponsored by their, chosen, benefactors to do whatever their, good funding does for them. Mm-hmm. But he knew how difficult it was going to be. He knew his friends would turn on him. But more importantly, he knew that was going to happen, and he did it anyway. And I think that's perhaps the more important aspect of that, which is he understood this was not going to be easy.
Eric also broke down his father's impact on both politics and the nation.
He's done amazing things for this nation. And as a son, I'm truly proud of his fight, of his tenacity, of everything that he's given up for this country. I mean, they tried to kill him multiple times. All right. I mean, he almost died on a stage in Butler, and he still stood up and said, "Fight, fight, fight." And I love the man to death. He's my best friend. We're inseparable. And really proud of everything he's accomplished. You can give that to 10,000 other billionaires. No one would have been left standing after this. And he's tough as hell. And hopefully he's a great example to so many that will follow, because that's exactly what we need in America.
Now, pivoting to current events, did they weigh in at all on the Middle East situation?
Yes, definitely had to ask them about the biggest news of the day. Here's what Don Jr. had to say about some of the divisions in the Republican Party regarding Iran and Israel.
I'd love not to get involved in wars. That's not my thing. I think we can't plan on that. I think we got to protect civilians, right, from some of these things. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of people calling around what's going on. I mean, there's definitely been a culture shift, I think, in the last few years, and especially probably over the last few months, of what would have been traditional conservative dogma. But I think, generally speaking, the American public is very clear about not wanting to be in another never-ending boots-on-the-ground war. I mean, I think, that is something that I think everyone probably agrees on. And so, yeah, it is an interesting time. There's a lot going on, but I understand, my father gets these things, has an instinct for this better than probably anyone. He understands, what his people want, and he wants to keep us out of wars.
But first and foremost, the Trumps are a business family, and they announced on Monday that they're launching Trump Mobile, a new cellular service for Americans. The Trump family was once debanked and deplatformed, so they're very interested in offering alternative solutions.
We could call any banker in New York and get a deal done, and then all of a sudden we got political, and that went away. We were debanked, we were deplatformed. It's why we created Truth Social. Mm-hmm. We were thrown off all the other platforms, and so, rather than just sort of complain, take our ball home and go cry, we always want to adapt and innovate. And so, this was sort of that next step.
We're putting robots on Mars. We're doing it better than anybody. You mean to tell me we can't make cell phones in the United States? And by the way, if there's any products that we should be making in the United States, it's the high-tech products.
Well, an interesting perspective from these two who have, of course, been at the ground level for the whole MAGA movement. Mary Margaret, thanks for reporting.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for waking up with us. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back this evening with more news you need to know.
Let's talk about what most men are missing, and it's not just sleep. The average guy is falling short by 30 to 50 grams of protein a day. Add in a diet low on key nutrients, no wonder so many men feel tired, unfocused, and stuck in low gear. That's why I start every morning with the Emerson multivitamin from Responsible Man. This is not your grandpa's Centrum. Emerson multivitamin is loaded with 33 powerhouse ingredients that boost energy, sharpen focus, support your heart, muscles, and your immune system. I feel the difference every day. And now new from Responsible Man, Theodore Protein with 25 grams of clean American-made protein. It's the no soy, no BS way to fuel your strength and close the gap fast. So here's the play. Head over to responsibleman.com and use code WIRE at checkout for 50% off your first order. That's right, half off. Strong men build strong families and a strong country. That's responsibleman.com, code WIRE. Let's go.